Welcome to the Money Tree Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we learn from real estate professionals across the industry. They will share about how they got into real estate, the big wins they have celebrated, the mistakes they have made along the way, and the advice they have for anyone following in their footsteps. Money really does grow on trees. Hey everybody, it's William Hollins here for another episode of the Money Tree Real Estate Investor Podcast. I've got a special guest. I've known him for a long time, Reid Bennett. He's out of Chicago. Really successful broker. Reid, I'd love to hear a little bit of your personal story, man.
Sure. Well, hey, thanks for having me on, William. I appreciate what you're doing with these podcasts, and I've been following you for a while as well, probably since the first time you started posting these. So appreciate your time. It depends on how far back you want me to go to get personal here, but I moved to Chicago in 1999, and I ran a personal training studio in the basement of Al Wacker building right downtown in the Loop. And a majority of my clients were real estate brokers and attorneys. And so I would just spend my days with them watching, just kind of picking their brain the entire time I would spend with them. And it was something that I was really interested in. My college roommate, when I went to University of Iowa, he bought the house that all my friends lived in on their victory lap on their fifth year of college, rented it out through to them, utilized that, bought another deal, and ended up with, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 homes on the campus of University of Iowa.
Wow.
Sold those, bought a deal down in Austin, Texas, an apartment deal, and then flipped it like 2 years later for double the money. And so he had sent me a book, which I'm sure you hear a ton of people talking about, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he said, you have to read this book. And this guy did it to a T. I mean, followed it to a T. He retired, probably 10, 12 years ago. The rest of us are still grinding it out in the world. But it was an interesting book. And one of the things I really enjoyed about it was the real estate aspect. And so I got into the real estate business not too long after that. 2001, got my real estate license. 2002, started brokering multifamily, and I've never done anything else other than multi. And so grew my practice from the small neighborhoods in Chicago on up to apartment complexes in the suburban markets. And ever since I took over the National Council Chair of Multifamily for my firm, now we're doing deals in multiple states around the country, working with many of my colleagues. So it's been really fun to kind of evolve through, from the neighborhoods of Chicago out to areas like in your backyard in Texas and New York. And we did a deal in Raleigh, Durham. We actually closed another deal in the Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota. So we're really all over the place. The metrics are very similar in multifamily. You just need to know the nuances as you get into different locales across the country. But yeah, it's been exciting.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's a journey. It's a roller coaster, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I like the highs, and I learn a lot in the lows.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you didn't make it through the 2008, 2009 crisis. So we'll give you a little taste in the next couple of years here of what that might have been like.
Oh yeah, yes sir, yes sir. Well, I know. Obviously, you're very successful. Did want to just give you a big shout out. And I want to read this just to make sure I get it right. So you got the Partners Circle Award. I think you've done that 4 times now. So that means that you're in the top 0.02% for brokers within your firm. What's the secret sauce? What makes you, and your deals just stand out and perform so well?
Well, I think a lot has to do with persistence. I mean, this business, it's a challenging business to get involved in, especially on the brokerage side. Most people would say don't plan on making a deal for at least a year when you're in the business. And really we're telling a lot of the juniors, and I coach brokers around the country too. Through one of the best coaching platforms in the country. And, we're telling agents, if you're not on a team where you can have an immediate impact with a team and have some income that way, to plan on 1 to 2 years. And the way I like to put it to those agents is, or brokers is, you have to look at it like you're going to get your MBA.
Hmm.
You're not going to school for 2 years and paying, $60,000 to $100,000 a year, but you're not going to make money. And you have an opportunity to make money. But to me, there's been nothing like being in the brokerage aspect of multifamily, where I get to see 100 different groups, ways of approaching deals, whether it be market rate deals, whether it's on the affordable side, all the different execution strategies that you learn from the brokerage angle really gives you, something that maybe you could get a mentor, but you're getting one person's view if you're working with a mentor, which I'm not saying don't do that, but from the brokerage angle, we just get to see so many different execution strategies and ways people look at deals and analyze deals. I mean, when we market a deal, we're bringing one to market next week. We've already seen probably 70 different ways of looking at it. And it goes from, man, nobody's ever going to buy that deal, to, yeah, this is a fantastic deal. Let me take a look at it and we'll run the numbers this way. We have this kind of capital stack that we can run. And it's really interesting. It's a business of a ton of no's. I mean, 96%, 97% no's, but all you need are the 3 or 4% that say yes, as you're probably finding out, in your practice, that make that. So that it's a difficult business to get into because of that. I just posted something on LinkedIn. It was a conversation I had. Unfortunately, one of my childhood friends had passed, and we had gone to we all got together for the funeral in my hometown. This was a couple of years ago, and I saw some guys I grew up with as kids that stayed in my hometown, and when I was explaining to them what I do in brokerage, they were just like, wait a minute, you don't get paid unless a deal you're working on closes. I said, yeah, that's right. And I'll never forget. He's like, man, that's so risky. That's so risky. And I knew what kind of position he had with the city. And I said, I actually think what you do is risky. I said, did you have to ask for time off today to come to his funeral? And he's like, yeah, I had to put in time off. I said, do you have to ask for time off for vacations or to go see your kid's soccer game? And yeah, I usually have to do that. To say, well, that seems risky to me to do that and have somebody, tell me what I can and can't do, and then tell me what I'm going to be making. Maybe I go in for a 3 or 4 or 5% bump, just based on like an interview I have with my boss. I said, that sounds risky to me. So different people have different levels of risk tolerance, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'm seeking to raise capital. I'm placing capital, finding deals, analyzing deals, partnering with other people that are doing deals. And, I'm getting told lots of no's as well in the raising
Sure.
capital.
Sure.
And, ultimately I would say real estate is, at least actively being a general partner. Passively, I think it can be a great opportunity for pretty much everybody to
No.
invest, but actively it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
You have to have thick skin, you have to be willing to walk through fire, and like you said, and we'll about to dive into that a little bit more, but the waters are choppy at this point.
Sure.
So people that have been in it for 4 years, potentially they don't know what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting that you're talking about capital raising. When you're talking with a number of different people that want to invest in deals, everybody's all about it, right? They're like, absolutely. Tell me about your next deal. I'll invest. And then you find that deal, and then you go back to this list of people and you say, hey, you mentioned you're ready to go when I find it. Then they're like, my kid's going to college. I needed to put, I have this, my car broke down. It's interesting when you start asking for funds, because we've helped a couple of our clients raise some capital for deals,
Yeah.
and we've had groups and owners and people say, hey, look, whenever you find that next deal, call me. And then we call them, And it's always, it's not like everybody thinks. If you have this list of people that said they're interested, or you're doing a soft reserve. Once you go back for them, sometimes they're not there. So it's a challenge.
Oh yeah, most certainly. Well, I know
Yeah.
we before the show started, we talked about that Houston portfolio. It's all over the news. So for those listeners that aren't aware, there was a group that had purchased several properties in portfolios over the last couple of years, and they're now in foreclosure. So investors have lost a lot of money, and that guy is potentially in some serious legal consequences as well. I'd love to just get your input on that, and what are you seeing in the market as a whole?
Sure. Well, having been through a couple cycles in my career, it's interesting. When I was 27 and getting ramped up in brokerage, I mean, I just remember. Well, first of all, I thought, because I was, all the deals that I was selling at that time, I was selling to condo converters. That was the big craze when I was starting to sell multifamily. And it wasn't that I thought, it was like I fully believed there were going to be no apartment buildings, that every deal was going to get converted into condos. That's how hot it was in that market. And I had 176 contacts that were condo converters on the northwest side of Chicago alone. So everybody and their brother were getting involved in it. And it's just, for those people that get into it, and I've never seen more syndicators get into the multifamily space than I have in the last 5 or 6 years. It's been, incredible to see the groups of syndicators and the conferences that people go to, and they say, here's how you do it. I'll be your key principal. Go out there and find the deals, and we'll raise the funds. And then you see all these syndicators post on LinkedIn, we had a 3x return in 2 years on our deal. And you just see all these things and everybody gets excited. And then you have that FOMO, the fear of missing out on a deal. So everybody's trying to get into this thinking that no problem, we're going to be able to raise rents, double-digit percentages each year. We're going to be able to cut expenses. It's like, I don't want to say it's like musical chairs where, when the music stops, kind of people are left with, the bag. But things don't go up forever. And we just saw the hottest market in the 22 years I've been doing this. 2021 was the hottest market I've ever been involved in. Better than the condo craze days. And, if you would have told me in March of 2020, when we were watching on the news, the one what was it? It was a cruise ship that was off the coast of California trying to keep COVID out of the United
Oh
States.
yeah.
You would have told me then that, coming in, that 2020 was going to be like, a really horrible year. I would have said, yeah, it's going to be a horrible year. And then if you would have told me 2021 was going to be worse, I said, yeah, it'll probably be worse. I would have bet my house on it. And it ended up being the best year ever. Just because of a number of different metrics that hit the markets that we probably don't have time to go over. But it's going to be a challenging market right now, especially with the fact that the Fed raised interest rates 8 times in 10 months. I don't think that's ever happened in history. Typically, my understanding from an economist I talked to last year was it takes the market 8 months to absorb a 50 basis point increase. And so we've just had a 450 basis point increase. And if you just saw in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, the Fed's threatening to raise interest rates again in May, which is it's just unbelievable
Right.
what effect that's going to be having, and which nobody knows. I don't have a crystal ball that works that well, so I can't tell you exactly what's going to be happening with that. But the cost of capital has been really slowing the deal volume big time. And most of the groups we're talking to when we're trying to pitch them another deal is our pencils are down. We're waiting to hear what happens with this, what kind of debt we can get. But there still are a number of groups that have a significant amount of capital that need to place it. So they're looking for a small number of deals that are out there that you can buy. And so what I'm looking at right now is, and we're bringing out a deal next week that has a fantastic assumable debt with assumable debt, you have to have a long enough term that it goes out. And then you also have to have a high enough LTV to make sense. Nobody's coming in with a 60% down payment to take over your 40% LTV loan. So it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be a juiced up LTV. It needs to be a long enough term and a great interest rate. Those deals are going to get done in this market. Other deals where the seller has enough, substantial amount of equity, if they want to get a 2021 or early 2022 price, they have to give you 2021 or 22 terms.
Mm.
And some of the groups that can be the bank and sell their deal with terms like that, they might get a pretty decent price, because again, there's a ton of capital still like looking for deals and wringing their hands. We're getting calls every day. Hey, what do you have? What do you have? We need to put this equity to work. And then the third kind of transaction, is going to be the deeply discounted deals that are coming back with, bridge debt. Because a lot of the groups that had bridge debt with low interest rates are going to have to refi, and they're going to have to do cash in refis. And in 2009 and 10, it happened with a lot of groups too, where they had to bring money to the table to get a new loan, even if they're
Mm-hmm.
saying to the bank, "Hey, look, my metrics are fine, my income is fine, just let me extend this loan." And we saw a lot of that. It was called extend and pretend, where the banks didn't want to receive the property back, and they
Yeah.
wanted to, let these owners try to figure it out before they took it back. So I think we're already seeing that in the office space. I mean, there's 70 billion of office loans coming due, and a lot of that is going to be distressed. So, the great thing about multifamily is the metrics are very strong. And what happens in this type of market where interest rates rise is a lot of the would-be homeowners that are renting right now that, saved up and we're going to be buying a home, they're priced out right now. The inventory is still pretty low as far as homes. The pricing hasn't come down, but the debt, I refinanced my home a couple of years ago at under 3%. You can't get that
Right.
anymore. It's 6 and 7% right now. So that just doubled your payments for a lot of homeowners, especially first-time homeowners. So it's going to keep them in the market. You know, the other thing that we're seeing a challenge with a lot of the multifamily owners is the inflationary pressures on the expenses. So it's like everybody's getting hit from every different angle. I mean, the Fed should have been raising rates in 2021. There's no doubt. They waited too long and they're hitting it too hard, and it's going to have a detrimental effect, as we're already seeing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I got to listen to an oil and gas group. I got to listen to their economist yesterday, and was just, fascinated. I don't really see this in popular news and media, but
Yeah,
obviously the BRICS nations, there's a lot of companies and businesses and countries that are trying to, you know, get rid and move away from the US dollar at this point.
yeah,
So he was saying that he doesn't think that the US dollar is going to disappear, but he thinks that there is a strong possibility, that it's going to lose value in the short term and in the long term. And, people are needing places to put their money that is going to have a store of value, whether the U.S. dollar is strong or not. And
yeah, yeah.
um, he talked about gold, he talked about oil and gas, obviously, and he also talked about real estate.
Well, to me, there's nothing. There's no inflationary hedge better than real estate. The bricks and sticks of real estate, and um, if you keep your money in the bank, even if there are a couple of banks here in Chicago that are giving you 4% on your checking account right now. Still, it's devaluing. When the government's printing trillions of dollars, I mean, I don't even know what a trillion looks like. Um, I mean, it's 1,000 billion, right? And a billion's a
Right.
thousand. I mean, it's just once you start talking about those numbers, it doesn't matter. I mean, I remember in the downturn, in 2010, I met with a multifamily developer in our market, and he said, the bank's coming after me for $106 million. He goes, I don't even know what $106 million looks like, so they can come after me all they want for it. So it's like now we're getting into trillions.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no doubt it's devaluing, but to sit with your property, and we had a lot of groups. I'll never forget talking to a couple groups in 2018, 2019 that said, we're holding, I mean, they were so far ahead of the curve. They're like, we're holding onto our property because we're waiting for inflation, because it's way better than selling my deal and putting the money into a bank or into a CD or, even into the market at this point. So, and those guys were right.
Passive investors in real estate are able to receive a check every month. Some people call that mailbox money. We say money really does grow on trees. Visit the website at biggerpictureholdings.com, where we have a ton of free resources to help you learn more about planting your very own money tree.
Absolutely, yeah. So, what's the best advice that you have kind of for property owners and those looking to buy kind of moving ahead?
Well, I think if you can buy deals that make sense right now, you're going to be fantastic. I mean, and you have to be looking for longer term holds. The right now, I don't think a 3 to 5 year hold is going to make much sense unless you can get in at a really low basis, which I haven't seen a really low basis on a deal in a long time, just because the competition has been so heavy in the multifamily market. But I think the look at 100 deals, make 20 offers and maybe get involved in one, is a good metric, and it just has to be the right deal. Don't get that fear of missing out on a deal, especially now. It has to really make sense. And look, I think in every single market, there's always going to be a home run deal you can find. If you're digging deep enough, you're going to find the deal. There's always reasons that groups have to sell. My favorite is, when groups have, there's 3 partners and they're all fighting with each other, they're going to sell. They don't want to be involved with each other anymore, and they're going to take what the market will bear. There unfortunately are, health issues that owners have. I'll never forget when I was first in the business and I was calling all the owners in my certain area of Chicago. There was one guy that I had called, and he said, "I'm never selling this deal." And then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 months later, I saw that it was on the market with one of my competitors. And I call him up and I said, hey, you said you were never going to sell this deal. He said, "Look, I found out I had prostate cancer, and that guy called me like the day after I had the diagnosis, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to be spending the rest of my life managing this deal. I want to spend it with my family."
Yeah.
So there's always a reason, there's always a time, which is why if you're going to be calling on people, you need to be doing it at a consistent level, and take all the no's. But you have to also be adding value to people when you call them. You can't just be, in your case, do you want to invest? Do you want to invest? Do you want to invest? You have to be sharing information with them and sharing, what's going on in the market and why, why certain investments that you're talking about or interested in acquiring might be beneficial to their portfolio and to them. Because everybody has the what's in it for me when you're talking to them on the other end of the line. So that's one of the main things that we changed in the brokerage practice, is just more sharing information. When it used to be back in the day, it was, you're calling the guy saying, "Hey, do you want to sell 123 Main Street? Do you want to sell? Do you want to sell?" And then it changed. Everybody got the great idea. "Oh, hey, what do you want to buy? Let me talk about, let me take down your acquisition criteria. What do you want to buy?" Those two things, you can ask those in the conversation, but if it has to be a conversation that you're adding value to the person, sharing something that's going on in the market, because everybody right now wants to hear what is happening with all these banks failing, with the interest rate, hikes. What is happening? How is it going to affect me? And if you can share that with people, how this is affecting them, and then what your solution is, you have a much better opportunity, when you're talking to other individuals on the other end of the line.
Yeah, that's so wise, man. I think it's great to seek to add value and not just be a taker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I got one last question for you, Reid, and I ask this to every single person. I try to give people a spotlight at the end. I want to give you a platform just to talk about your proudest accomplishments and anything that you wanted to hype up today.
Oh, sure. Well, we just really we appreciate some of the, I guess our main accomplishments in the real estate business, have been selling deals multiple times. And in one case, we sold the same deal for the exact same owner. And it's tough to get your head around that. But what we did with that one was we had sold it for him and he carried paper on the deal. And a year later, the buyer couldn't keep up. He was losing a bunch of other properties and he couldn't keep up with the payments. So the same buyer foreclosed on that person and has called me and said, look, I just foreclosed on him, sell it again. And so a couple of those deals from a business standpoint were my greatest accomplishments in that business. But really my two best accomplishments are my two boys that I have right now. And that's just on a personal level.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, sir. Well, that's so cool, Reid. It's been great to just talk real estate with you today, and hopefully we can have you on the show again. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Sure. They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, or they can call me on my cell. My cell is 773-251-7342. Reach out anytime.
Yes, sir. I highly recommend it. This is one of my favorite guys in real estate. Reid, it's been great talking to you.
Thanks, William. Appreciate you.
Like and subscribe below. A new episode will air every Tuesday at 7 a.m. Are you looking for more content? Visit our website, biggerpictureholdings.com. And remember, money really does grow on trees.